Hello. Hello. In this video, we are going to talk about the common hiding spots in the museum, starting from Hunter Spawn. And basically, if we head in this direction, basically we're going to look at all the common hiding spots, basically in this single tunnel, like up to here, and that's it, right? Because this tunnel leads up to Hider Spawn, right? If you keep heading in this direction, you'll eventually reach Hider Spawn. So that's why it's important to keep track of the different hiding spots in this tunnel. So really, that's the hiding spots we're focused on in this video. Alright, but we're going to start physically at Hunter Spawn to see, okay, what spots might you see in Hunter Spawn? Well, the hiding spots you see in Hunter Spawn Room typically come from when you're coming back from using Leaper Hunter and switching to Radar Hunter. The most common spot I would say in Hunter Spawn is to find a flower pot behind one of these things, like right here or right here. Or it could be a chicken, right? Either one. Like 95% of the time, that's what you're going to see in Hunter Spawn. Actually, maybe not 95, maybe 80%. I don't know. Sometimes you'll find flower pots inside the actual kits, like the hunter kits. So it's like that. Right? Any one of them you'll find them in. And as for these bookshelves, typically if you find a hider here, it'll typically be an infestor, so that sometimes happens too. Alright, so that's basically it for the Hunter Spawn Room. As for outside of it, like you might find a flower pot like right here, near the corner, or the other corner. Either one can happen, but usually it's going to be this corner. That's usually this. Alright, so now we're going to start to head towards this direction. Right, as for over here, right, the only thing I would really be aware of is, like for instance, you have a bookshelf right here. That's really the only thing to be aware of, because at the beginning of the game, it's really easy to see if there's a hider traveling to hide in that block pile right over there. So it makes it really easy to tell if there's a fake hider there or not. So you don't really have to think about it too much. As for the note block stack, again, you don't really have to think about it too much because it's really close to Hunter Spawn. For instance, if you're at the beginning of the game and you see a hider head in that direction, you know that there's probably heading towards the note block stack, so not something you really have to think about too much. Right, heading over here, right, as for the hay bale stack, I'd say the only important spot is right here. Like, literally, like if this is the only spot you'll typically see a hay bale hideout that you can't really see super well, right? For all the other hiding spots, it's really easy to see that hay bale stack from Hunter Spawn, right? It's really easy to see if there's anything over there or not. It's not super difficult. As for the chickens, right? As for the chickens, there should only be a total of 3 chickens in this region. As the game goes on, they tend to roam around a lot, as you can see, but in the beginning of the game, they're typically concentrated at this location. So determining whether or not there's more than 3 chickens is really easy at the beginning of the game. So it's not something you have to worry about too much. I like saying that. It's not something you have to worry about too much. Okay, so now we're gonna go to the beginning of the tunnel, which is these TNTs. As for the right TNTs, basically, this is actually a really common structure you're gonna see many times in the museum, right? When we get to the next few videos, you're gonna see this structure appear a lot. I think it's 3 videos from now, you're going to see this structure appear 3 times in the same tunnel. And so it's really important to know the structure so you'll know it right away. Like once you see it, you know what it looks like. So yeah, any deviation from what this block pile should look like, for instance like this, or like this, it has to be fake. So just knowing what the structure looks like is really important. And going to this TNT stack, basically, like a connecting TNT. You can technically see from Hunter Spawn this block pile. You can't really see that one so much, but that one you can see. So it's not really going to be that big of a deal. Not something you really have to worry about too much, right? Okay, I had to say that once more. So now we get to the beginning of the tunnel. So before we go over the specific contents of this tunnel, let's talk about flower pots, because you can see flower pots everywhere in this tunnel. Right? Because, hiders tend to have that sort of mindset that hiding as a flower pot tends to work really well, but it obviously doesn't if you know what you're doing. Really, you could see flower pots here, right? You can see them on top of it. You can see them on top of the stairs as well. I'm not going to go on top of it, like right here. You can see them like up here, the very top right here, right? You can see them right here. Variety of spots you can find flower pots at, right? But the only thing you have to know is that there are only 2 real flower pots in this tunnel. That is this one and this one. Those are the only 2 real flower pots in this tunnel. If you see any others, they're fake. So that's an easy way to remember it, right? When in doubt, it's a fake flower pot. Except for this one and this one. That's really all you have to know. Alright, so now let's go over the specific contents inside the tunnel, right? So we're going to break it up step by step because it might look like there's a bit going on, right? But really we can break it up step by step. Right, let's start with these 2 TNT stacks, right? So starting with the one on the right, basically, it's a pretty simple structure once you look at it for a while, right? But basically, like if you see 2 TNTs on top of each other like this, it's fake. If you see it square off like this, it kind of disrupts the path leading in the tunnel. Like, you know, if you're trying to walk straight into the tunnel, there's a TNT in the way, sort of, right? And so it feels naturally obvious to consider this as a fake TNT because it kind of gets in the way of the path of the tunnel. If you see a square of TNT like this, right, it's fake. Whenever you see squares, many times it's going to be fake. As for the hunter maps, right, the hider maps, some of them actually do have squares in it, but this one's fake. You see a staircase of 3 TNTs like this also is fake. Right? That's basically it for this TNT stack. As for this one, basically you just gotta know the common hiding spots, right? If you see 2 TNTs in a row like this, it's fake. Or 2 TNTs on top of each other, right? This one's pretty common. I would definitely be familiar with this one. Right? Those are just the 2 spots you need to know for that stack. Right, again, this flower pot is real. As for the note blocks, basically you have 1 note block on either side of the path, right? 1 on the left side, 1 on the right side. It doesn't get any easier than that. So really, all you gotta know is like 2 note blocks on top of each other like this. Or again, on the other side as well. Right? But another thing you might see is like a diagonal note blocks in a row like that, or like this. Right? Either one is possible to see. Right? You could also see 2 note blocks in a row like this. That's really the whole idea. So 2 note blocks in a row. Alright, so continuing to go deeper into the tunnel, right, we have, furnaces and flower pots. Basically, it's kind of like fill in the missing piece, right? If you wanted to complete the pattern, it would make sense to put a flower pot right here. Well, if it completes the pattern, right, we know that there's only 2 real flower pots in the tunnel. This flower pot has to be fake, right? Has to be fake. But you might also see a furnace right here, right? Furnaces also point in the same direction, so it kind of makes sense to put a furnace here. So this would be a fake furnace, right? You can't see any block hiding right here, right? It would be fake. Right, as for these furnaces, right, kind of works really well because we have TNTs on either side, no blocks on either side, furnaces on either side, and so it's pretty nice up to this point. But as for these furnaces, really, you can also think of it as fill in the missing pattern, right? It would make intuitive sense to put a furnace here. But really, it has to be fake, because if you complete the pattern, it has to be fake, so you know that's a fake furnace. Basically, you shouldn't see a furnace on top of either one of these 2 furnaces, so like, also you can't see one right here as well, that'd be fake. Right, another thing is if you see like a TNT right here, right, it shouldn't be 3-dimensional, right? It should be overall a 2-dimensional stack by the looks of it. I mean, it's not 2-dimensional obviously, but it only, basically this block pile right here has a width of 1, right, going from left to right. But it shouldn't be like 3-dimensional like this. Basically, as you see a block right here, it's fake. You see the furnace is going way too high up, like right here, that would also be fake. And that's really all you have to know for the furnace stack. Now I should mention the spot, right? Even though we know there's only 2 real flower pots here, it's really important not to forget this one, because as you're moving through the path, it makes it really difficult to spot a flower pot right here if you don't consciously look there. Like if you're just heading through the tunnel and you don't consciously take a look there, right? Like, your peripheral vision might just completely ignore it because you're focused on the stuff coming later in the tunnel. It's really important because this spot right here is really important, right? I've even missed it. It's really, yeah, so it's important to know that spot as well. Right, and that's basically it. Going deeper into the tunnel, we have 4 more parts to look at. Right, the cauldron stack, the bookshelf stack, furnace stack. Oh no, we have 5 more parts, sorry. Sorry, it's been a while. Cauldrons, bookshelves, furnaces, note blocks, bookshelves. A lot to look at, but if we break it up and sort of get familiar with the location of them, makes it somewhat easier. As for the cauldron stack, pretty easy, right? Only 3 cauldrons. Now, thankfully, cauldrons cannot hide on top of each other, so it can't become solid on top of a cauldron, so not really anything you have to worry about. But it is possible to physically hide inside a cauldron. But if you have F3B enabled, that is, your hitboxes, makes it really easy to tell if it's a fake one, because you can obviously see the hitbox, so that's something we already know about. Now, as for the hiding spots in this cauldron stack, just like for the TNT stack, where if we have it squared off right here, right, this is fake, right? Just like for the cauldron stack, if we see it squared off, like right here, same exact thing as before, this would also be fake. It doesn't really block the path though, so it's not going to be as easy, but again, if it's squared off, it has to be fake. Right, another thing, I'd say the other common spot is to see a cauldron right here. Right, again, this is just another spot that you just have to memorize. If you see something like this, it's fake. That's basically it for the cauldron stack. So that's the cauldron stack. Next we have 4 more to look at, right? Notice bookshelves and furnaces are on basically opposite sides. And then after that, you have notebooks on bookshelves on opposite sides. So really, you can break it up into 4 parts, right? Starting with the bookshelves. Right, these bookshelves, they're basically right next to a tunnel that you can go through. It's pretty good for rooting. Basically, bookshelves are, basically, there's 2 L's, right? We have the big L and the little L. If you just memorize it like that, it makes it really easy, right? Big L, little L. Any deviation from that has to be fake. But if you want to memorize the common hiding spots, right? For instance, if you see a bookshelf literally blocking the path inside this route, right, inside this tunnel, then you know it has to be a fake bookshelf. So you can never see something blocking that route. Right? Now, really, here's some other spots, right? Just like for the TNTs, as we saw at the beginning, you can never see a square, right? Squares are typically a bad sign. It's typically a sign that you're dealing with a fake block. In the case for the museum, right? So this would be a fake bookshelf. Right? Also, if you see a bookshelf right here, it's fake. This is probably the most common spot in the stack. Or if, as you're encountering the bookshelf stack, you see 2 bookshelves on top of each other right here. It's also fake. That's basically it for the bookshelves. Now we move on to the furnaces. Furnaces are basically this stack right here. You see a furnace right here, it's fake. Basically, that's all you have to know. Like, this is like the only spot you'll typically see a furnace hide at, right? Because it's like basically a spot where you can be inserted into it, right? But some other spots, like for instance right here, might happen. That's basically it for the furnace stack. There really is not much for it. Okay, so now we have 2 more to look at: note blocks and bookshelves. I'll start with the bookshelves. Bookshelves are pretty easy, right? I didn't mean to do that. This is a pretty common spot for bookshelves, and also you see 2 bookshelves on top of each other like that. These are basically the only 2 common spots, like right here and right here. Typically the only spots you'll ever see. Right? That's basically it for the bookshelf stack. As for the note block stack, well, a little bit more going on. Again, it's not a super difficult structure to memorize, right? One thing to keep track of is that you should never see the note block stack go too high up. So this would be way too high up, right? It should never go 3 blocks high. In addition, there should only be 1 note block on the top of the stack. Like for instance, if you see 2, like for instance right here or right here, then it's also fake. Another thing, you should never see, basically this is sort of squared off, just like with the cauldrons, like, but it's at the corner. This would be fake. Last thing is you should never see 3 note blocks in a row, like this, or like this. And that's really all you have to know for the note block stack, is being able to keep track of those deviations, right, that you spot as you go through this many times, right? Sometimes it might be more useful to start out, like when you're just starting out hunting, start out by just using radar hunter, so you're getting familiar with these different hiding spots. If you don't feel like, because in the beginning, you're just learning, you might just have to physically look at to see if there are any of those deviations. And it can be really difficult to keep track of it. So if you want to start out by just, using radar hunter to keep track of what might those, where might those fake hiders be and what those deviations look like, might be useful to start out by using radar hunter. And then you can transition into leaper hunter. I've seen many hunters in the past do that. So this is basically it for the first tunnel leading up to hider spawn. That's pretty much the whole idea, and that's pretty much it.